Hello again. I am Matt Davio with the 1 Minute Trader podcast, and I've got a very special guest today. I've got Tracy Schuchart with me. For many of you traders, you may have followed or do follow Tracy on Twitter at Shy Girl. That's Chicago Shy, Chigrl, I believe. Am I correct, Tracy?
Yep, that's it.
So thank you so much for coming on. You and I talk in the dark web of Twitter quite a bit, and I think we have similar warped senses of humor and probably similar veins as it comes to trading. So I want to know, and I'm sure many other people want to know your story. Tell us a little bit about how you came into this really perverse world of trading.
Sure. Well, I was actually what I call my first lifetime, my first career.
Yeah.
I was living in California. I went to school out there, and I did this and that. But my last profession, basically, I was in the medical supply industry.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that. What were you in sales?
Yes, I was in sales. I was head of sales for the western region of the United States.
Can you tell us the company that you work for?
So I worked for Martech Medical.
Okay.
And basically they're an OEM that,
then would they sell to the Baxters and the larger companies of the world then?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. So I call, instead of calling on doctors, I called on Baxter, Bard.
Did you ever call on a company, DeRoyal Industries in Knoxville, Tennessee?
No, that wasn't my territory.
You were West Coast, right? Okay.
Yeah. But and I sold custom extrusion plastics, basically medical grade plastics.
Yeah.
So,
tubing, a lot of tubing.
Exciting as that was, yes, as exciting as that was, and we specialized in multi-lumen catheters. Anyway, so as exciting as that was, not really. And I was making a good living.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Newport Beach.
That's a good place to be doing that job out of, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad. I had ocean view. It was great. And everything was great except for I woke up every day and I hated my job.
So I don't know
what I was doing. I was bored out of my mind.
Tracy, I don't know if you know this, but I came from the same business. I worked for a decade.
No way.
Yeah, I worked for a decade for Baxter, for Allegiance, for DeRoyal, and we sold your end product to the doctors and the nurses. So. And so similarly, by 1996, 97, I also was making a good living. I was about to have my wife was about to have her first child, and I didn't want to be away from home as much as I had been.
Yeah, there's a lot of travel involved. That's what I hated as well.
Yeah.
Like every week, like I was home. I had this great place, lived in California, it's great, and I saw it on the weekends. That's it. And then, you're traveling all the time.
So 2005, just to give some context, right? So is that when you...
2005, yeah. So it's 2005. That's what I'm doing. And
not an easy time to think about making a career change into being a trader from Newport Beach.
Well, it was before the market crashed.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
At the time, it sounded like a good idea.
Yep.
But literally, I just woke up one day and I decided I really hated going to work every day. I hated doing what I was doing. I was traveling all the time. I was tired of it. And so I literally quit my job, decided that I was going to move to Chicago. Had never been to Chicago in my life.
Come on, really?
Knew no one there. I know, believe it or not. And flew there for a weekend, found an apartment, came back, packed my stuff, and I was there a week later.
And you went to Chicago because you thought?
Because I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into trading.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, specifically in the commodities market.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Obviously, you gave that some thought. So how did you go from selling a produced commodity to end user marketplace to?
Well, actually, my dad was a broker in St. Louis.
Okay.
A commodities broker in St. Louis. So kind of maybe in the genes.
And was he a stockbroker, a traditional broker, or what kind of broker?
So commodities.
Okay.
Believe it or not. But at that time, back then, they were like stocks and commodities.
Right.
Kind of all combined in.
So you were, I mean, so growing up, you heard conversations. You know, your dad would come home and talk about this guy, that guy bought this.
So and I never really thought about it,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, by that time in my life, unfortunately, it passed away. But just the more I thought about it, the more I talked to people, I decided that this is what I wanted to try and go to do. I also thought that, given my sales background, mm-hmm. I could at least break into the brokerage business and get a start, right?
Yeah.
So I was hoping that skill set that I already possessed would be an easy door for me to break into the industry.
So what did you do? Like, tell us the footwork that you did once you got to Chicago, and how did you,
So I get to Chicago and forget your sales experience altogether, right? I had this big idea. I can go work for a brokerage, get my foot in the door, move my way up to trading. So it doesn't work that way.
No.
So all I did was send out resumes, talk to everybody, and I got a lot of slack because, first of all, I was a woman, and even if I was determined, they didn't really care. Most of the brokerage floors at that time were 100% male. I didn't see many firms that had more than, say, 2 or 3 women at max. So literally sent out resumes, knocked on doors, called just did whatever. Basically I begged for a job.
Did you come across or seek out any female mentors as you were going through this search process?
I didn't really know anybody.
No, I understand that, but I'm just curious. Yeah.
I was kind of looking, but I didn't really meet people in the industry until I got my first job.
Okay.
So, because it's kind of a closed industry. So people are like, oh, so you want to join this industry? Okay, that's right. Okay, don't do it. Like everybody's first response, you go to Chicago and work, they're like, I want to get in this industry. And everybody that works in the industry says right away, don't do it. So.
Yeah, they do. I know. I'm sure you tell people the same thing today. I do. I'm like, you don't want to be in this business.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know. So long and short of it is, after begging and knocking on doors, I basically got my first job and I had to beg for it at like a complete boiler room futures brokerage.
Really?
Like hands down. Like they would have hired anybody on the street, but I was a girl, so I had to beg for the job. I'm no kidding. Which was quite amazing, and it ended up that I was their best broker, and
So talk about that. What led to your success coming from outside that industry in a male dominated business? You go to work for, as you in your own words, a boiler room future shop brokerage.
Yeah.
How did you find success there?
So I always like a challenge. Everything's a challenge to me, and I'm not going to let somebody's predisposed ideas of me kind of hinder me. And a lot of women get intimidated by that because
I would even argue that even a lot of men get intimidated by that. Yeah.
So I just worked my ass off, to be honest, and it was a horrible job. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever done the brokerage business, but you make 500 phone calls a day, basically begging people for money. Right. And then tell them, but that's back in the days when we were charging like $100 a round turn per contract. Right.
Yeah.
But it is a horrible job. Like it's a horrible job. I'm not kidding. But I wanted a foot in the industry, and you know what? It ended up getting me to where I wanted to be.
So tell me the best thing that you learned from that experience of being just a grinding.
The best thing I learned was just like you have to be really assertive, broker. You have to. I think as a girl, you kind of have to like overcompensate, worth X, about it's more about not only, your personality. So, I have a very kind of dominating personality, but, your work ethic has to outshine you have to work twice as hard as everybody else.
Yeah, and you have to learn what you don't know faster and quicker and more.
Exactly. You just have to, it's the only, or at that time, which is, I should say, that was the only way that you could get ahead, really as a woman, because men would, men are going to be men. They're going to be, how they are. But, you're a woman in kind of the men's locker room.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's not really welcome right away. So you kind of have to earn respect. And that means, from your bosses, from your peers.
So were you the only girl from day one,
Yes.
a late woman? Were you the only woman there? And when you left, were you the only woman there?
Yep.
And did you see any others come and go?
So, no, not at that particular firm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, as soon as I kind of built up kind of a reputation, and I was working in a CBOT building, and, there's a lot of brokerages there, and they kind of, everybody kind of knows everybody. Once you're there, everybody kind of knows everybody that's working in other brokerages. So I managed to, make a name enough for myself that I then, got hired by managed futures companies, which I didn't really like selling managed futures so much, but, it was a step above where I came from.
So you went from individual, dialing 500 times a day to then saying, okay, here's a book of accredited type investors. We want you to go sell, and I don't even know if they called them CTAs then, but we want you to go sell an alternative investment vehicle to wealthy people.
So it's it's an easier sell. I mean, not, but I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So after that experience, and then it was kind of it was an up and coming managed futures. It was but it was a step in the right direction. And then after that, I got hired at one of the top tier brokerages at CBOC. And then from there, I moved my way up to the floor. So I worked on the floor. I ran a trade desk in the bond room and the grain room.
And were you, at that point, were you still taking orders mostly and learning the business as far as,
Yeah, I mean, I worked on, on the trade floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were a floor broker.
Yep.
So basically I would take orders. I worked, but it was institutional.
Yeah.
So then I was now calling on hedge funds and banks.
Right.
Instead of people.
So now you're basically a sales, you've worked your way from phone book dialing to a sales trader on the actual physical floor, which,
correct.
So give us timeline. 2005, you moved to Chicago,
so that was like about, I mean, it took me quite a few, I got to the floor late. I think it was probably 2009, 10.
Okay.
And so then that's years to get there. I mean, it wasn't an easy road.
And then that's I mean, I knew by 2003 that the floor was dying. So I know that you knew by 2010 it's dying.
Yeah, but what I really liked about it is that I wanted floor experience, and I knew if I got on the floor, not only would I have floor experience, but I also have access to a lot of actual traders.
Totally.
When you're a broker, you're calling down to the floor,
Yep.
You're calling your desk to call down to the floor to make those trades for you. You don't have, I wanted access to actual traders.
Right.
Because I wanted to be a trader. That was
okay.
Whole thing.
So here you are, you're learning about trading from the physical floor, from the best, most, in the know people in the business. And
oh yeah, I mean, I was very lucky that who I was working for, had been in the business, had been on the floor for 30 years, knew his stuff. He came from Fed funds.
But I want to make a point here, Tracy, that because I've got kids who are in college. I've got two more that will be in college, and for all the kids that may be thinking, hey, I want to be a trader. It sounds sexy. It sounds this, sounds that. You've heard both Tracy and myself say it's difficult, it's hard, stay away. But the other key point I want to make here, no matter what you want to do it and do it the way that you need to do it. And I mean, look at how long it took you, Tracy, to get from, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
totally. I mean,
You
but
know,
this is important because it doesn't just happen overnight. Like people just think, oh, you know, she was so lucky she knew somebody, or what I hear is you worked your tail off, did whatever you had to do, ethically, morally, legally, to get where you needed to go, to train yourself, to educate yourself, right? That takes time, and you were willing
well,
to,
exactly.
and you were willing
And
to, you were willing to be the janitor until you got there.
and I pretty much was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. But the whole time, even when you're a broker, I mean, you're still advising these clients. And granted, I started as an options on futures.
Right.
So I was selling options. So that's really where my background started. But I mean, you're learning to trade the whole time that you're there, because there's no way you can sell somebody something unless you know about it. You know,
Absolutely.
I was still looking at charts. I was still learning the trade. I was still, even though I wasn't, actually trading.
So walk me through how then because everybody's, again, no matter what type of trader anybody is, I always want to know, like, all right, how did you find the way that, or a style that fit your personality, fit your lifestyle, and then became something that you wanted to know as much as you could about? So, because you saw a lot of different things, and so how did you, and give us some story there on how you developed your way of participating and becoming a risk manager in the markets.
Well, I started. I mean, when you start, have all these products that you're selling, and when I was on the floor, I was working in the grain room and the bond room, and I don't trade grains or bonds. So,
today,
but that's where my background is.
Right.
So, and to be honest, how I found crude was literally when I was working at the chop shop. I call it the boiler room.
The chop shop.
Seriously. So, my first winning huge trade with my client was on crude options.
Uh-huh.
And literally the crude market from then stuck. So I just studied the crude market constantly. Like, it didn't matter what company that I was working with and what I was supposed to be selling or this or that. I mean, I learned a lot about, other products and things like that, obviously. But, the whole time you have to realize, like, the whole time I have this end goal of being a trader, right? So I'm taking all this knowledge and I'm still watching the market all the time, and I'm still watching this particular market. I don't know. I fell in love with crude.
So it was a trade. Was there?
It was an A trade, and then also, I come from a political science, international relations background. That was my major.
Okay.
And with a specialized study in the Middle East.
Uh-huh.
So, everything about the oil market already interested me.
It already fit into your knowledge wheel.
It kind of into my background.
Uh-huh.
And then, having like your first big winning trade, it was like, I love crude. This is it. I found it, right? And I was lucky to find it really early. So
yeah, I agree, because I mean, personally, I like, if somebody came to me, one of my kids said, "Hey, Dad, I want to be a trader," I would say, "Hey, I want you to start with probably the S&P, just because it's the biggest."
Right.
But I would also say, once you get that a little bit, I want you to know as much as you can about oil, and it's different than the S&P. But I think somebody could trade just oil and never do anything again and make a nice living, personally.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I would say that's probably 90% of my trades.
Yep.
Still today, I trade a few other products here and there, but 90% of what I trade is, crude oil, either straight futures or spreads.
Yep.
Or whatever, but it's all,
Okay,
related.
so oil is there from day one. You
right.
draw some things that you like, and you work in your job. Although oil may not be day to day, you're learning about it, so you're constantly learning again. as you're in the business, you're applying yourself and you're learning and learning and learning.
So then what happened is, I was working on the floor, and actually didn't work on the floor that long because business was kind of dying at that point. But again, loved the fact that I had experience there. But
Yeah.
I was there when literally the futures pits would have 2 people reading newspapers in them. It was all options.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I was at the tail end. So, after that experience, I met some more people. The thing is that when you go down the floor, you make incredible contacts.
Right.
Your networking is incredible. So that's how I met a ton of people, a ton of traders. I actually, I just worked the trade desk, but I started making trade recs and saying this, and they were like, yeah, and I was making their clients money, So I got good recommendations, and so I ended up in a prop firm.
Okay.
So I started in a prop firm because
can you tell people what a prop firm is, because a lot of people don't know what it is. So
basically, a prop firm is you're trading somebody else's money for a split, but you are trading with their rules and however much leverage they want to give you.
So although it's
very, you're confined as far as how you want to trade, but if you're just starting trading, I would say that it's a really good experience because you can't, you'll be fired if you blow the account.
That's right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So you learn a lot of discipline, I would say.
I agree.
As a young trader, because you wouldn't necessarily, because you're trading with somebody else's money, you're not going to be, and I was used to trading with somebody else's money, but you're not going to start taking risks that you may, if you're just a trader starting off on your own, you're like, I'm going to open, an X amount of dollar account, and then, 5 months later, you blew it all. When a prop firm gives you a little direction and I guess a little
and they tap you on the shoulder when you get a little close to
right,
their uncomfortable level.
a little out of control. You're there or they'll shut you up.
Right.
So it does help when you're first starting off trading. Right. And I did that for about a year, and it was great, but it was a little bit stifling to me, and I went out on my own. And
so obviously you were successful again. We're building on the success that you continue to have. You obviously were comfortable enough saying, you know what, I can do this on my own. I had made a bunch of money before I got into this business. I'm assuming you walked away with more, and you're like, I'm ready to trade on my own.
Right.
And so we're talking 6 years of apprenticeship in Chicago. Yeah. And you go out on your own. Do you stay in Chicago, or do you go back to California, or do you go somewhere else?
No. I stayed in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I just moved to Canada.
You just did, right?
Yeah. So I just recently moved to Canada. But this business has afforded me to go multiple places I went to. I was able to go to Oslo for 6 months and work on helping set up a fund there. I've been able to travel the world with this job, and I can trade from anywhere.
Yep.
All I need is internet connection.
Yep.
And it's a lot of freedom. I'm not on anybody's, not having somebody say, which hospitals which companies did you visit today? How many calls did you make? There's nobody saying that to me anymore. So, I made the absolute right decision for myself, mm-hmm. But was it a long, hard road? Absolutely. So if you think you're just going to get into this business and it's going to be very easy, it's not. It's a lot of work. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're lucky enough, I think, to get into a prop situation today, which there's fewer and fewer of.
There are fewer and fewer. You know why? Because what happened is 2008 happened, whenever all these, companies lost a ton of money, and so they don't really want to risk It's not like back in the day, prop jobs were everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Now a lot of shops closed down or consolidated or.
Well, and I think the rules changed also, where you could either be a prop shop meaning like you had, where you're not putting up money, or the other way now is you do have to put up money, and there's nowhere in between. So it used to be kind of this hybrid, but now it's like there's no money, so you're very constrained, to your point, and you don't want people telling you what to do.
Companies don't want to have the risk anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
They got, especially after 2008, like they're just like, I don't want to take the risk anymore.
Yeah, they're wiped out. Exactly. So now let's talk kind of like how would you define the type of trader you are when you're involved 90% of the time with oil? Like, how do you trade? How do you look at markets, macro down to micro? What time frames do you like to trade? How do you behave? Just give us a good overview of kind of your day, maybe, and we can start from there. How do you look at the markets?
Yeah, I mean, we'll always look down. I mean, all the time look down from a top-down approach. Mm-hmm. So, you want to start with the largest time frame and look down to the smallest time frame that you're trading on. Now, are you used to,
Well, say that again, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, a lot of people will go, I want to be a day trader, so I'm only going to look at today's chart. But
which is like the wrong way to look at the market. Like, literally, you need to look at, like, every day I look at least a weekly, daily, and I start from, the top down, basically the largest time frame down to, if I was day trading and I want to trade off of a 500 tick chart, that would be the very last chart that I would look at.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. How did you come to that? I'm just curious, because I think a lot of people.
You have to have I think you have to, in order to get a bigger picture of where is this market going, where has it been, where do I think it's headed to, you need to back out. Like, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, back out of your 3-minute charts, people.
Yeah.
Get a better view of where this market's going, because people start trading on these 1-minute charts and these insane small microscopic view of what the market's doing. You need to step back. I mean, to make, I think, clear trade decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
You need to see what is the market doing? Where am I? And where am I starts at where am I on a monthly view, a weekly view, a daily view.
And so when you do that,
even if you're a day trader, you need to be looking at weekly charts and monthly charts.
So, as a active trader and an educator, I mean, I'm so happy to hear people like you and say this, because I tell people this from day one. I'm like, we're gonna look at a monthly chart. We're gonna see what the trend is. Now, do I use that to trade off of every day? Absolutely not.
No. But you need to see it. But it gives you that macro view. Where is this market? Where is this market been? Where is it going? What kind of trend? Are we in an uptrend? Are we in a downtrend? Are we consolidating really on a monthly basis?
Right.
I mean, you have to look at that stuff. I think in order to make, you have to start with the macro view in order to make a micro view decision.
Absolutely. So, what tools do you use to put the market into that light? In other words, are we in an uptrend? Are we in a downtrend? Are we flat? Are we basing? What kind of tools do you start with to answer that question? Where are we right now?
I mean, what I do is heavily technical based.
Mm-hmm.
Know that fundamentally on here a lot, and everybody knows I'm fundamentally, on a macro level, an oil bear, because we're still trading in the 50s. We were at 140 at one time.
Right.
So, but that's an overall fundamental view. That has nothing to do with how I trade.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't be long today and long tomorrow and short in a week. Right, I get it.
Exactly. I'll trade long and short. So for people to be like, but I mean, if you look at the charts, we are still in a downtrend.
Right.
So coming from where we are. So, I mean, it's still fundamentally a cyclical downtrend.
Yep.
Now, intraday or this great, we're off of 26. That's great. You know, we're $25 off the low, but we're $90 off the high.
Right.
So
Yeah, what are we closer to? It's the same situation as the gold bugs are in right now. We've been in a bear market for
I know.
8 years, people. That's okay. I'm in it for the long run. Well, yeah, that's what everybody who was a trader who became an investor says.
Right.
Nobody gets rich off the end of the world trade, people. Stop.
The end of the world is not coming. I'm
not
going to
coming.
tell you. Dollar is not dead yet. The end of the world is not coming. Gold, oil is not going to be traded in a gold-backed UN contract. I can tell you a million things that aren't going to happen.
Right.
All you need to do is look at a chart.
Thank you. So what are the things that you have on your chart? Give us an idea of what you look at. What are important to you?
So you look at trends, macro sense. So if on my intraday charts, first of all, I always have a 4-hour chart out because even though I started more as like a day trade scalper.
Yep.
And that's fine. I'm a little bit older now, and it's a little too much work for me. So, I trade off of a 4-hour chart really on massive levels, but I do have a tick chart up all the time. I do have a footprint chart up all the time. I do have, I do look at the auction. I do look at, everybody knows I'm into market profile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also into Cum Delta. I'm also a fib person, which people don't like, but they work.
I like, well, you're talking my game. I use all the tools that you said. So, auction. So you said you're more technical, but if let me just challenge you a little bit. I think there's really 3 types of traders. I think there are, and you could add in a 4th just for fun, but I think there are fundamental traders. I think there are technical traders. I think there are behavioral traders, and I think this is maybe a point we could talk about, since Thaler just won the Nobel, and there's a lot of question, there's a lot of people in his, economics world that think behavioral is bullshit. And then the fourth type of trader is the gambler, I don't have any idea what I'm doing, but I'm a trader. Or I'm all long, or I'm all short, right? So those are kind of the 4 that I think people really fall into one of those, or cross between. Now, I started as technical, and I definitely am aware of fundamentals, but I think all of us have to learn that the fundamentals are cool to talk about at dinner parties, and maybe, but even that I don't even want to talk about anymore, because it doesn't matter. It's only
because it doesn't matter anymore. You take one look at ES, the fundamentals.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So tell people what footprint, auction, and market profile are, because you mentioned those, and I always want to, not everybody is aware of these terms. So you tell us what those 3 terms mean to you.
Well, market profile, first of all, it started in the 80s by Steedlemeyer,
right?
Who came from the floor.
Right.
And that's how I learned market profile, is when, I took little bits of everything that I learned at, every job on my way up here. But floor traders were big market profiles, huge,
yep.
Right? So
because they didn't really have like the charts you and I have today.
Yeah, they're not real. Yeah, they don't have, they're charting what, right?
Yeah.
They literally, they looked at the board,
yep.
And they looked at market profile.
Yeah.
They did. And that's it. No charts. Literally, basically, no charts.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right.
But so that's where I learned market profile, and it actually, even though everything's electronic now, market profile is still a very good tool, because you see the distribution, the time price
yep.
distribution during the day, and you also see those areas where you have incomplete auctions, which I call repair areas.
You call them repair, I call them cleanup on aisle 9.
But same thing.
No,
I don't think there's actually a technical name.
No, there's not, but I'm sure there's many other names. But I love repair, and I love, we had a spillover on aisle 9 over in
Right.
the ketchup aisle. Can you please go over and clean that up?
Right, and the markets do like to come back and clean up those areas
Yeah.
because they're incomplete auctions. And basically an incomplete auction is something. The best example is if you're looking at a footprint chart and you see the market, do a stop run, and you see all these zeros or blanks,
Yeah.
depending on your platform. Those are incomplete auctions. So the market always likes to come back and correct those areas.
Now, why do you think that is?
Because I think it's because it's an incomplete auction and the market is
Like, but put it like in, if you were, I don't know, if you were at your kids or your nephew's school auction and they were auctioning off the shitty products that they made or whatever, right? And
right, because you can't go from $10 to $20 without filling in,
yeah,
11 through 19.
correct.
Right? So the market will eventually, you hit $20, you're, offering $20, you got no takers.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to start coming back down.
You're going to have to go to 18, see if anybody will take it. Yeah.
Right. And if they won't, then we'll go to the next level until we finally fill in all those unfinished auctions and somebody at 11 goes, okay, I'm buying.
Now, on a macro perspective, Tracy, I think you and we've talked about this, but geez, you start looking at the weekly and the monthly charts. We got a lot of cleanup on aisle 1 through 13 going on right now.
Oh, for everything right now.
Everything.
Actually, crude right now is leaving in its wake a lot of, we have a lot of damage below.
Yes. And in a good way I use to explain this to people is like you wouldn't build a foundation, on your brand new, 3,500 square foot home on a foundation that is built on structure like we're talking about. And structure meaning there wasn't a lot of activity, buyers or sellers. We basically, go through these fits and starts of gaps that get us to a price. We trade there for a while, and then we may go to another gap higher, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing.
That's kind of what we're saying. We can continue to do so, and I kind of think that's like, I think that's kind of a pattern indicative to the spread between WTI and Brent has been widening.
Yep.
And initially, it started around the hurricane season, and that kind of blew out all the crack spreads, that blew out everything.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of just on this, we're on this path of that, WTI and Brent are going to need to catch up.
Yeah.
At one point, and that spread's got to come in. It doesn't have to, but most likely it will.
Trader talk.
We're exporters now, and I don't think OPEC's gonna let that last too long.
No.
I mean the discounts that we're trading right now, and this goes into some fundamentals too. But the way that I trade is fundamentals kind of with technicals.
Yeah.
But you have to think fundamentally speaking. You have this, WTI is trading at say $5 average right now discount. We were at maybe $1
right
normally.
Right.
Now we're exporting, and so who are people going to buy from? They're going to buy WTI.
Right.
So how long do you think OPEC is going to let that last? So you have to think this spread is going to come in at some point. So at some point, these two spreads have to converge, and that either means WTI needs to come up, or Brent needs to come down, or or they both move in the same direction, just one moves slower than the other.
Right.
And I think we're about to see that.
Well, it's funny. I was just saying to a couple other traders today that I can't tell you what it is, but there's some news that's brewing that feels like it's going to come, whether it's a war type issue, but you can just kind of see we're fighting our way higher, especially in the WTI right now, and there seems to be very little to support that, and so there's distribution.
And the market feels tight. The market feels tight. We just have these bursts. Like It's not having like when the market starts trading higher, fundamentally on fundamentals, it trades differently.
Yeah.
We keep seeing liquidity flushes. Keep saying, it's just a different kind of trade. I'm not really sure how to verbalize it.
I can't explain it. That's why I was hoping you could. I can't.
But I think this market's getting tired. I think that it's fighting seasonality. It's fighting
well, and then I think
that said, I'm still posting long trades because until I see differently.
Right. I think we're also at the mercy of kind of what's going on with the interest rate markets to some extent between the Chinese Congress, their 5-year plan, between Draghi the last couple weeks, today especially the euro breaking down.
Well, exactly, and then we're going to start hitting headwinds. I mean, look at CAD today, look at USD, look at eventually
we have the Fed next week.
Oil's going to go, oh my God, the dollar is way up here.
Yep, exactly.
Oops, we may be trading a little too high.
Yep, exactly. So, what's next for you? I know you still are involved with some of the institutional things, which I would guess you've been successful because of the network you built in Chicago, even though you're no longer there. And then also, your life skills. I mean, you're a fantastic salesperson, skilled. Obviously, you understand your product, and you're able to take that. So, do you want to tell us about any of the projects that you're working on outside of your own trading?
Right now I'm just focusing on my own trading.
Okay.
And I just moved to another country, so
yeah. What brought you to Canada?
Personal reasons.
Okay.
Cut that part out.
Yep.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, so give us maybe a surprise that you see in the next 6 months that
So I think I don't know. I mean, I can only speak for the oil markets really because it's really all I'm trading. But I think the oil markets are going to have a surprise for everybody to the downside and the upside. Like always when the market goes up, the market's going to 100. Always if the market goes down, going to 10. We're not going to either one of those.
Right.
Anytime soon, right? We're still, if you look at it, literally, we haven't moved for a year and a half.
Yeah.
In a macro sense, this market hasn't moved. We're still stuck in a range, and that's fine. But I think this market might be subject to some volatility soon, and I think that is going to be to the downside and the upside.
So would you give it where would you give that bracket then? Like, is it for you? Is it 35 to 65, or where are you saying?
I would say, well, it's too consolidated right now. But I would gladly say 40 to 60. But I think it's going to hurt people both ways because I know this product too much and it's not that kind.
So when it comes to hurting, do you use different tools to look at who is extra super long and who is extra super short in crude? Let's just talk about crude.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can get the COT reports, which the weekly ones, which I personally am not an entire fan of because it's lagging data. It's from the Tuesday before.
So just so everybody knows, those are the commitment of trader reports that the CME puts out every week on Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah. But
they're lagging reports because so you get them on Tuesday. I mean, if you're trading crude could drop $5 between them.
Do you know of any other way to access a day or so before data on that?
I mean, if there is a back end way to get that information on the CME website.
Okay.
They used to provide that information for us every day when we worked on the floor.
Right.
We would get daily reports instead of weekly reports.
Right.
And so there is a way. I don't have a link currently, but there is a way to still access that information off the CME website. So you can actually see those reports daily at the end of the day or by the morning time.
Okay. Cool. I didn't know that. I always wondered if I figured somebody had access to it. I didn't know if it was public. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
there's a way to do it.
Okay, so what about event risk? Do you see any event risk that could take it outside of that $40 to $60? I mean, do you see it? Where it could.
Sure, if we go to World War III happens, or
Okay, but not just your typical garden variety skirmish in Afghanistan
no.
elevated.
I mean, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. There's always geopolitical risk in this.
Of course, and I'm just playing what if. I always like the game theory.
What
part of
if
it.
Trump is stupid and?
Well, we already know that.
sanctions?
Oh, I'll tell you what, the market will be up 30% in 11 months.
Yeah, I know, right? So, aside from that.
Okay, well, hey, Tracy, I've taken enough of your time. I appreciate you coming on. And if anybody wants to follow Tracy on Twitter, again, she's Shygirl, at CHIGRL on Twitter. And she's a hoot to follow. She's got fantastic wit and is fun, and also posts some great charts. I don't know where you get it. I think sometimes I get some pretty good stuff coming my way, but then I see your feed and I'm like, damn, she's got.
Well, thank you, Matt. You are the best.
She's got so much good information that sends me down rabbit holes. So I appreciate it. She should be on your top 3 follow list for sure.
Top 3.
Oh yeah, if not number 1.
Hey.
Yeah.
I
mean, she's on my top 3.
I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy. Hang on.